Hey guys, in today's lesson we're going to go ahead and talk about completing the square. And just a little recap, completing the square, we're talking about quadratics. Now the reason we're going to be talking about completing the square is because we're talking about factoring. Let me go ahead and talk about factoring real quick. Remember, we used to do what we call the x factor. So what I do in order to factor this trinomial is I take the product or the factors of x squared, which are x and x. So x times x gives me x squared. Now, factors of negative 32. Now, keep in mind that those factors have to give me the sum of positive 4. So I want two numbers that'll multiply to give me 32 or negative 32. But at the same time, they're going to add up to positive 4. And those two numbers or two factors are 8 and negative 4. 8 times negative 4 is negative 32, and 8 minus 4 is also positive 4. And we can go ahead and test it out. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. X times 8, positive 8x. When we combine these two, we're going to get 4x. Okay, so our factor would be x plus 8 and x minus 4. Okay, that would be the solution. The only problem is now, sometimes it's not going to be this easy. You're not going to be able to factor this. So let's say instead of 32, you had just 3. Okay, how are you going to factor it now? And that's the problem. You won't. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. And let me go ahead and give me some room. So let's say you had x squared, let's say plus 4x. I don't know, let's do minus 3. Let's do plus 3. Okay. Alright, let's do x squared plus 4x plus, let's do 2. Now if you notice, if we try to factor this, there's no way we can do x and x. The factors are 2, this is a prime number, it's just 2 and 1. There is no way I'm going to get 4x. X times 1 is 1x, x times 2, that's 2x. The best I can do is a 3x. Okay, so that is not going to work for me. So what we have to do is they came up what we call completing the square in order to factor, in order to find the solutions for this quadratic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set it equal to 0. Okay. Now I'm going to make myself give myself some room here. This positive 2, I'm going to take them over here. Now I'm going to be left with x squared plus 4x plus, I'm going to make my room here 0. Now the plus 2, the positive 2, when I take it to the other side, it becomes a negative 2. Okay, now it's called completing the square for a reason, and it's very, very simple. Now this middle term, all you have to do is take the half of it. Half of 4 is 2, and we gotta square it. Okay, and that's it. Now the only thing is, whatever you do on the left, you have to do on the right. So 2 square, same thing. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do this the long way, just to let you know how it works out. X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0 minus 2 would be negative 2 plus 4. Now this trinomial here, you're gonna notice it's gonna be able to factor x and x. Factor the 4, that'll add up to 4, 2, and 2. And you notice it's the exact same number that we have here. And it's just written 2 times. You see this? So this is going to factor out into x plus 2 times x plus 2. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. Now we can go ahead and rewrite this, simplify this into x plus 2 quantity squared. So we're going to write x plus 2 squared equals 2. Alright, now remember we have to solve it. Okay, so this would actually be completing the square, but in order to solve for the value of x, okay, we will take the square root on both sides. That's gonna give me x plus 2, because remember this gets rid of the square. Now anytime you take the square root, remember you have two solutions, a plus and a minus. Okay, our last step is solve for x, and this guy's gonna come out into the front, and we're gonna have x is equal, instead of positive 2, we're gonna have minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 2. So our solution is gonna be negative 2 plus the square root of 2, and we're gonna have negative 2 minus the square root of 2. And you notice these are irrational. Why? Because we were not able to factor it in from the beginning. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do one more and make it a little bit more challenging. I'm gonna make this one a little bit more challenging. Equals 16. Now there's one rule about completing the square. You notice this coefficient, this number here in front of the x, that cannot be there. Okay, so we have to remove this 2 from in front of the x squared. Okay, so if you notice, I made it a little bit more difficult. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide everything by that coefficient of 2. And you can do that because it's not going to change the property of the trinomial. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Alright, that's a lot easier. So now we have that x squared by itself. We're going to complete the square. So let me go ahead and give myself some room. What is half of negative 2? Negative 1. We square it. Same thing, whatever we did here on the left, we have to do on the right. And we're going to have negative 1 quantity squared. Okay. Now we can go ahead and solve it. Now I'm going to use a shortcut. All you have to do when you complete the square, take 1x here, and whatever's inside this parentheses, that's what you write down. It's a minus 1, so I'm going to put minus 1. Now, parentheses and my square. And that's it. You don't have to multiply it out. Just go ahead and do that little shortcut. If you want, you can, and you'll find out you'll get the same result. We have 8. Negative 1 squared is a positive 1. Be careful with that, okay? A lot of students think it's a negative 2. I know, I make that same mistake as well. Now, to continue to solve this, now some teachers will leave it like this, but if we want to go ahead and continue to solve it, we're going to square both sides. Square root both sides, and that will give me x minus 1. 8 plus 1 is 9. So the square root of 9 is 3, plus or minus 3. And our last step, take this guy over, x is going to equal, instead of a negative 1, it's going to become a positive 1. So our two solutions are going to be x equals 1 plus 3, and x is equal to 1 minus 3, which becomes 4 and negative 2. Okay. Now, because I was able to get whole numbers, that tells me that I would be able to factor this guy. Okay, so let me go ahead and see if I can do that real quick. X squared minus 2x. I'm going to bring the 8 over. It's going to be a negative 8. Can I factor this out? Let's see, x and x. Factors of negative 8, that'll give me negative 2. Okay. The factors of 8 are 4 and 2. 4. Let's see, to get negative 2, this would have to be a negative. X times 2, it will give me some room here. 2x. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. That's it. And you notice this will end up being my factors. And then once you solve it and you set it equal to 0, you're going to get the exact same thing. Okay, x minus 4 equals 0, you're going to solve it and get 4. X plus 2 equals 0, and you're going to get minus 2. Alright? But the important thing, completing the square, take the half of the middle coefficient and then square it. Alright guys? Hope that helps. See you next time.